My name is Sarah Mitchell, and if you're listening to this story, I need you to understand something right from the start. I didn't set out to destroy my family. I set out to save myself. It was November 15th when I stepped off that plane at Atlanta International Airport. 8 years. 8 years of sand in my boots, IED explosions that still echo in my dreams, and watching friends come home in flag-draped boxes. I was finally done. Honorably discharged, medals in my duffel bag, and ready to start the life I'd been putting on hold since I was 19. The first thing I did was call home. Mom's phone went straight to voicemail. Dad's too. My sister Emma didn't pick up either. I figured they were busy. It was a Tuesday afternoon after all. People have jobs, responsibilities. I'd surprise them later. I caught a cab to the house I'd been sending money to for 8 years. The same house where I'd grown up, where my bedroom was supposed to be waiting for me, where my family was supposed to be excited to see their daughter, their sister, their hero coming home. But when I walked up that familiar driveway, something felt wrong. The mailbox had been repainted, new numbers. The garden Mom used to tend was completely different, modern, expensive looking. And there in the driveway where Dad's old pickup used to sit was a brand new BMW. I knocked on the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. A stranger answered, a middle-aged woman with perfect hair and a confused expression. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking me up and down like I was some kind of solicitor. "I'm sorry," I stammered, checking the address again. "I think I have the wrong house. I'm looking for the Mitchell family, David and Karen Mitchell." Her face changed. Not recognition, something else. Something that looked almost like pity. "Oh, honey," she said softly. "The Mitchells moved out about 3 years ago. Sold the house to us. Are you Sarah?" The ground shifted under my feet. 3 years? They'd sold my childhood home 3 years ago and never told me? "Where did they go?" I managed to ask. She hesitated, then disappeared inside for a moment. When she came back, she had a piece of paper in her hand. "They left this," she said, pressing it into my palm. "Said if anyone came looking for Sarah Mitchell, to give her this." My hands shook as I unfolded the note. Dad's handwriting, messy as always. Sarah. "We tried to tell you, but you never answer when we call. We moved to Florida. Mom's health got bad and we needed somewhere warm. The house was too much to maintain. Don't try to find us. We've started over and it's better this way. Take care of yourself." I read it 3 times before the words sank in. They tried to tell me? I checked my phone records later that night from my hotel room. No missed calls from home in over 2 years. None. But it was that last line that cut deepest. Don't try to find us. They hadn't just moved. They'd escaped. From me. I spent the next week in that hotel room, making calls. I called every Mitchell in the Tampa phone book. I called my old high school friends, the ones whose numbers still worked. Slowly, piece by piece, the truth came together. My family hadn't just moved to Florida. They'd reinvented themselves completely. Dad had taken early retirement with Mom's insurance settlement from a car accident I'd never been told about. They'd bought a condo near the beach. Emma had finished college I'd helped pay for with my deployment checks, and was working at some marketing firm in Miami. And apparently, when people asked about their daughter, their sister, they just didn't mention me. "Oh, we thought you knew," said Jessica, my old lab partner from high school. "Your mom posted all these Facebook pictures from Emma's graduation, her new job, family vacations, but you weren't in any of them. We figured maybe you guys had some kind of falling out." Falling out. That's what they called 8 years of service. A falling out. I finally found their address through a private investigator. Cost me $600, but it was worth it to know the truth. I didn't call first. I just showed up. The condo was beautiful. Oceanfront, expensive cars in the parking garage, the kind of place my military salary had helped them afford. I knocked on the door wearing my dress uniform, every metal polished and in place. Dad opened the door and his face went white. "Sarah?" Not honey or sweetheart or even welcome home. Just my name, said like it was a diagnosis he didn't want to hear. "Hi, Dad." I kept my voice steady, professional. "Can I come in?" He looked over his shoulder, then stepped outside, closing the door behind him. He didn't want me in his house. The message was crystal clear. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I came home," I said simply. "My tour's over. I thought you'd want to see me." He ran his hand through his hair, grayer now, thinner than I remembered. Sarah, we sent you that note. We're trying to start fresh down here. Mom's been through a lot, and seeing you, it just brings up too much. Brings up what, Dad? What exactly do I bring up? He couldn't meet my eyes. The worry, the sleepless nights, the not knowing if you were dead or alive. We couldn't keep living like that. I felt something cold settle in my chest. So you just erased me? We moved on, he said quietly. It was healthier for everyone. That's when I saw her through the window. Mom, peeking through the blinds like I was some kind of threat. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. Does Emma know I'm here? I asked. Emma's doing really well, he said, like that answered my question. She's engaged now, planning a wedding for next spring. She doesn't need the stress of having a sister. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, Sarah, you made your choice when you enlisted. We've made ours. I think it's better if we just keep things the way they are now. I stood there on his doorstep in my dress blues, 8 years of service hanging from my chest in ribbons and medals, and my father told me I wasn't welcome in the life I'd spent 8 years protecting. I see, I said finally. Well, I guess that's that then. I turned to leave, then paused. Dad? That money I sent home every month, all those checks to help with the mortgage, the car payments, Emma's college, what did you do with that? For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. We put it aside for when you got back to help you get settled. How much? I don't know exactly, maybe 40, 50,000? It's in an account. I nodded. I'll be in touch about that. I walked away from that door, and I didn't look back. But as I got in my rental car, I could see them through the window, Mom, Dad, and Emma, who must have been visiting. They were having what looked like a serious conversation, probably about the problem that had just showed up on their doorstep. That night, I called my old sergeant, Marcus, who'd gotten out a year before me and was working as a financial advisor now. Marcus, I said, I need you to help me trace some money. What kind of money, Mitchell? The kind my family's been lying about. Marcus was good at his job, really good. Within a week, he'd traced every electronic transfer I'd made to my family over the past 8 years. The number wasn't 40 or 50,000 like Dad had said. It was $127,000. Sarah, Marcus said over the phone, his voice grim, you need to see these bank records. Can you meet me for coffee? We met at a Starbucks in downtown Atlanta. Marcus spread the papers across the table like he was briefing a mission. Okay, here's what I found. You sent money to 3 different accounts over the years. Your dad's checking, your mom's savings, and something called the Mitchell Family Trust. Family Trust? I never heard of any family trust. Yeah, well, it gets interesting. Look at these withdrawal dates. He pointed to highlighted sections on the bank statements. Every time you sent money to the trust, there were withdrawals within days. Big ones. And here's where it gets really interesting. The trust bought a property in 2019. Oceanfront condo in Florida. Ring any bells? My blood ran cold. That's where they live now. Yeah, and according to these records, you're listed as the primary beneficiary of this trust. Has anyone ever told you that? I shook my head, staring at the numbers. My money had bought their new life. The life they didn't want me to be part of. There's more, Marcus continued. The trust also shows payments for Emma's college tuition, her car, and get this, it paid for a wedding venue. Deposit made 3 months ago. Emma's wedding, the one Dad had mentioned, the one they were planning without telling me. Marcus, what does it mean that I'm the primary beneficiary? He leaned back in his chair. It means that legally, if anything happens to your parents, you inherit everything. But more importantly, it means you have a right to an accounting. You can demand to know where every dollar went and how it was spent. And if they refuse, then you can freeze the account and force a legal audit. He paused. Sarah, there's something else. The condo they're living in, it's not paid off. There's still a mortgage, and according to these records, the trust, your money, is making the payments. I sat back, the full scope of it hitting me. They'd used my money to build a life without me, and they were still using it to maintain that life. Every month, my sacrifice was funding their happiness while they pretended I didn't exist. What are my options? I asked. Marcus smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile he used to get before we went into a particularly satisfying operation. Well, he said, you could demand full transparency and an accounting of the trust. You could also revoke their access to any future funds. Or, he paused dramatically. Or what? Or you could exercise your rights as primary beneficiary and take control of the trust entirely. It's your money, Sarah. You've just been letting them manage it. I thought about Dad's face when he told me not to find them, about Mom hiding behind the blinds, about Emma's wedding that I wasn't invited to, paid for with money I'd earned dodging bullets in Afghanistan. How long would it take to get control? With the right lawyer? Maybe 2 weeks. The documentation is clear, and you have every bank record going back 8 years. I looked out the window at people walking by, living their normal lives with their normal families who didn't erase their children like inconvenient mistakes. Do it, I said. You sure about this, Mitchell? I thought about 8 years of Christmas cards sent to an empty house, 8 years of birthday calls that went to voicemail, 8 years of believing my family was proud of me while they were actually planning their escape. I'm sure. The lawyer Marcus recommended was a woman named Patricia Vance. She'd been a JAG officer before going into civilian practice, so she understood military families and their complications. This is straightforward, she said after reviewing the documents. The trust was established with your money. You're the primary beneficiary, and they've been acting as trustees without your knowledge or consent. We can absolutely petition for control. What happens to them? I asked. Well, that depends on you. You could cut off their access entirely, you could establish new terms for withdrawals, or you could dissolve the trust and distribute the assets as you see fit. I thought about it for 3 days. 3 days of walking around Atlanta, thinking about fairness and family and what I really wanted. What I wanted was acknowledgement. I wanted them to see me, to recognize what I'd sacrificed, to understand that erasing me hadn't erased their debt to me. I want to give them a choice, I finally told Patricia. What kind of choice? I want them to acknowledge what they did, publicly, and I want to be included in Emma's wedding. If they can do that, they can keep living their life with my money. And if they refuse, then they can explain to Emma why her wedding is canceled. Patricia drafted a letter that was polite, professional, and absolutely terrifying. It laid out the facts, the trust, the money, my legal rights, and my terms. Dear Mom, Dad, and Emma, I hope this letter finds you well. I've recently become aware of the Mitchell Family Trust and my status as primary beneficiary of the account that has been funded entirely by my military pay over the past 8 years. I'm writing to inform you that I will be exercising my legal rights to audit and potentially assume control of this trust, as advised by my legal counsel. However, I want to give you an opportunity to resolve this matter privately as a family. My terms are simple. 1, I want a written acknowledgement from each of you regarding my financial contributions to your life in Florida and Emma's education. 2, I want to be included in Emma's wedding as a member of this family. Tada 3, I want regular communication moving forward, not because I'm demanding it, but because that's what families do. If you agree to these terms, the trust remains as it is, with you maintaining access to the funds that make your current lifestyle possible. If you refuse, I will exercise my full legal rights as primary beneficiary, which includes freezing all accounts and demanding immediate repayment of any funds used without my explicit consent. The choice is yours. You have 10 days to respond. Your daughter and sister? Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army retired. Patricia sent it certified mail, return receipt requested. We had proof they received it on a Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, my phone was ringing. It was Emma. Sarah? Oh my God, Sarah, what the hell is this letter? I'd been expecting Dad to call, or maybe Mom. But Emma, I wasn't prepared for. Hello, Emma, I said carefully. How are you? How am I? I'm freaking out. Mom's crying, Dad's talking about lawyers, and there's this letter saying you might cancel my wedding? What is going on? I took a deep breath. Emma, did you know I'd been sending money home for 8 years? What? Money? Every month. Part of my pay went home to help the family. Did you know that money paid for your college? Silence on the other end. Emma? Oh, I knew Mom and Dad were helping with tuition, but I thought it was their money. It was mine, and it bought the condo they live in, and it's paying for your wedding venue. Did you know that? More silence. Then, quietly, oh my God. Emma, when I came home from deployment, no one told me you were all moving to Florida. I found out from strangers. When I showed up at your door, Dad told me not to try to find you again. Do you know what that feels like? She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. Sarah, I didn't know. They said you were busy, that you had your own life now. They said you didn't want to be bothered with family stuff. I called on your birthday every year for 8 years, Emma. Did you get those calls? No, I never got any calls. The pieces were falling into place. They hadn't just hidden from me. They'd hidden me from Emma, too. Emma, I don't want to ruin your wedding. I want to be your sister. I want to be at your wedding. But I need them to stop pretending I don't exist. She was quiet for a long time. Then, will you come to Florida so we can talk? All of us? Are you sure that's what Mom and Dad want? I don't care what they want right now, she said, and there was steel in her voice I'd never heard before. This is my family too, and I want my sister at my wedding. I flew to Florida 3 days later. Emma met me at the airport alone. She'd insisted on it. She looked different than I remembered. Older, obviously, but also more confident. The scared little girl I'd left behind had grown into a woman. She hugged me tight in the baggage claim, and I felt 8 years of distance collapse in seconds. I'm so sorry, she whispered into my shoulder. I'm so sorry I didn't know. It's not your fault, Em. You didn't know because they didn't want you to know. We drove to a coffee shop near the beach instead of going straight to the condo. Emma needed to talk first, she said. She needed to understand what had really been happening. Tell me everything, she said once we sat down. From the beginning. So I did. I told her about the deployment checks I'd sent home, about the calls that went unanswered, about coming home to find they'd moved without telling me. I told her about Dad's face when he saw me, about Mom hiding behind the blinds. Emma's face grew paler with each detail. And the wedding venue, I finished, was paid for with a deposit from the trust that was funded entirely with my money. She put her head in her hands. Oh God, Sarah, the venue. It's this beautiful place right on the water. $40,000 just for the deposit. I thought Mom and Dad had been saving for years. They had been saving my money. Emma looked up at me, tears in her eyes. What do you want me to do? I can't uninvite them to my own wedding, but I can't not invite you either. You're my sister. I don't want you to uninvite anyone, Em. I just want to be included. I want to be your maid of honor or bridesmaid or just there. I want them to acknowledge that I exist and that I've been supporting this family for 8 years. She nodded slowly. Okay, but you should know they're not going to make this easy. When they got your letter, Dad said you were trying to blackmail them. Blackmail? With my own money? He said you were being vindictive, that you enlisted to get away from us, and now you're trying to control us. I felt that familiar cold settle in my chest. And what do you think? Emma looked at me for a long moment. I think you're the sister who sent me a care package every semester of college, even though I never asked for them. I think you're the sister who called me on my birthday every year, even though I never got the calls. I think you've been taking care of us while we pretended you didn't exist. She paused, then added quietly, and I think Mom and Dad are scared because they know they were wrong. We drove to the condo together. Emma held my hand in the elevator. Whatever happens, she said, I want you at my wedding, even if I have to elope to make it happen. The door opened before we could knock. Dad stood there, looking older and more tired than he had a week ago. Behind him, I could see Mom sitting on the couch, tissues in her lap. Sarah, he said simply. Dad. Come in. I guess we need to talk. The living room was beautiful, all white furniture and ocean views, the kind of place I dreamed of buying for my parents someday, back when I thought they'd want me to. I sat across from them, Emma beside me. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. So, I said, you got my letter. Dad cleared his throat. We don't appreciate being threatened, Sarah. Threatened? I offered you a choice. You threatened to take away Emma's wedding. I offered to continue funding Emma's wedding, along with your mortgage and your lifestyle, in exchange for being treated like a member of this family. Mom spoke for the first time, her voice shaky. You don't understand what it was like, Sarah. 8 years of worrying, of not knowing if you were safe. We couldn't live like that anymore. So you decided to live like I was dead instead? She flinched. That's not what we did. Then what would you call it, Mom? You moved without telling me. You blocked my calls to Emma. You used my money to build a life that didn't include me. We tried to call you, Dad interjected. You were always deployed, always unavailable. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the call log. I have records going back 3 years, Dad. No calls from any of you, not one. Emma looked at him sharply. Dad? He ran his hand through his hair. We didn't want to bother you. You had important work to do. More important than family? You chose the military over us, Mom said suddenly, her voice stronger now. When you enlisted, you chose them over us. We just learned to live without you. The words hit like a physical blow. I'd spent 8 years believing I was serving my country and my family. They'd seen it as abandonment. I chose to serve, I said quietly. And I sent part of every paycheck home because I thought I was helping the people I loved. But apparently, I was just funding your escape from me. Emma squeezed my hand. Stop, she said firmly. All of you, just stop. She stood up, and suddenly she was the one in charge of the room. I don't care who chose what 8 years ago, she said. I care about what happens now. Sarah is my sister. She's been supporting me for 8 years while we acted like she didn't exist. That ends now. She looked at our parents. Either Sarah is at my wedding as my maid of honor, or there is no wedding. Period. Emma, Dad started, but she cut him off. No, I'm done pretending. I'm done lying. Sarah has been more family to me than either of you these past 8 years, and she wasn't even here. Mom started crying again. You don't understand. I understand that my college tuition was paid with Sarah's money while you told me she was too busy to call. I understand that my wedding venue was paid for with Sarah's money while you told her not to try to find us. I understand that you took her sacrifice and used it to erase her. The room went dead silent. Emma sat back down and took my hand again. Sarah, I want you to be my maid of honor. Will you? I looked at my little sister, not so little anymore, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like I had family. Yes, I said. I'd be honored. The weeks leading up to Emma's wedding were tense, but they were also healing. Mom and Dad didn't apologize. Not really, but they stopped pretending I didn't exist. It was a start. Emma and I spent hours planning together, making up for lost time. She told me about her fiancé, Marcus, not my Marcus, a different one, who was a teacher and made her laugh. She told me about her job, her friends, her life that I'd missed. I told her about the places I'd been, the people I'd served with, the life I'd built in the military. But mostly, I told her how much I'd missed her. I used to imagine conversations with you, I admitted one day while we were dress shopping. When things got really bad over there, I'd think about what I'd tell you when I got home. What did you want to tell me? That I was proud of you. That I was sorry I missed so much. That every dollar I sent home was because I wanted you to have opportunities I never had. She cried in the dressing room, holding her wedding dress against her chest. I'm so sorry I didn't know, she whispered. You were a kid, Em. It wasn't your job to know. The wedding was beautiful. Oceanfront, just like Emma had dreamed. I stood beside her as her maid of honor, wearing a dress we'd picked out together, watching her marry a man who clearly adored her. During the reception, Dad approached me at the bar. Sarah, he said quietly, can we talk? We walked out onto the beach, away from the music and laughter. I owe you an apology, he said finally. I waited. When you enlisted, I was scared. I was angry. I felt like you were choosing war over family, and I couldn't handle that fear. It was easier to be angry than to be terrified every day. So you cut me out. I tried to protect myself and your mother. We convinced ourselves that if we didn't think about you, didn't talk to you, the fear would go away. Did it work? He was quiet for a long moment. No, it just made everything worse. We stood there listening to the waves crash. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued. I know what we did was wrong. I'm trying to explain. Dad, I sent money home every month for 8 years. Even when I was scared, even when I was hurt, even when I didn't know if I'd make it home. I did that because I thought you were proud of me, because I thought I was taking care of family. You were. Then, why did it feel like punishment when I finally came home? He turned to look at me, and in the moonlight, I could see tears on his face. Because we knew we didn't deserve it, he said. We knew we'd failed you, and seeing you in that uniform with those medals, it was proof of everything we'd thrown away. It wasn't the apology I dreamed of, but it was honest, and sometimes honest is better than perfect. What happens now? I asked. Now? Now, I hope you'll let us try to be the family we should have been all along. I looked back at the reception, where Emma was dancing with her new husband, laughing and radiant. 6 months after Emma's wedding, I was living in a small apartment in Tampa, close enough to family, but independent enough to maintain the boundaries I'd learned I needed. The trust remained active, but now I was an active participant in decisions about how the money was used. I'd started working with a nonprofit that helped female veterans transition to civilian life. It turned out that my experience, being erased by family, struggling to find my place after service, was more common than I'd realized. The hardest part, I told a group of newly discharged women at one of our monthly meetings, isn't leaving the military. It's coming home to a world that doesn't understand what you've sacrificed. After the meeting, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 25, with the same lost look I'd had when I first came home. My family acts like I've been on vacation for 4 years, she said quietly. They don't understand why I can't just get over it and be the person I was before. You're not the person you were before, I told her. And that's not a bad thing. You're stronger now. You're more capable. You just need to find people who see that strength instead of people who want you to pretend it doesn't exist. She nodded, tears in her eyes. How did you do it? How did you find your way back? I thought about it. I stopped trying to earn my place in other people's lives and started building a life where I belonged. That afternoon, I got a call from Emma. Sarah, are you free for dinner tonight? Marcus is making his famous lasagna, and we have news. Good news, I hope? The best news, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I drove to their house, a modest place they'd bought with their own money, not trust funds, and found them both grinning like idiots. We're pregnant, Emma announced the moment I walked in the door. I hugged them both, feeling a joy I'd almost forgotten was possible. When are you due? September. And Sarah. Emma paused, suddenly nervous. We want to ask you something. Anything. Will you be the godmother? I felt tears prick my eyes. Are you sure? We're sure, Marcus said firmly. This baby is going to need an aunt who knows how to be strong, how to fight for what's right, and how to stand up for family. Later that evening, after dinner and baby name discussions and far too much wine, Emma and I sat on their back porch watching the sunset. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. The way you handled things with Mom and Dad? The letter, the trust, all of it? I considered the question. I regret that it came to that, I said finally. But I don't regret standing up for myself. For 8 years, I thought love meant accepting scraps. It took coming home to learn that love means expecting better. Mom called me yesterday, Emma said. She wants to help with the baby. She wants to be a grandmother. How do you feel about that? I want my child to have grandparents, but I also want them to know their Aunt Sarah, and I want Mom and Dad to treat you like the hero you are, not like a problem they have to manage. I smiled. I'm working on not needing to be anyone's hero, Em. I just want to be Sarah. Sarah who served her country, Sarah who loves her family, Sarah who won't be erased or ignored or taken for granted. And Sarah who's going to spoil my baby rotten? Oh, absolutely. That kid is going to have the coolest aunt in the world. As I drove home that night, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the girl who enlisted at 19 seeking purpose, to the soldier who sent money home hoping for love, to the woman who came home to find she'd been erased. But mostly, I thought about the woman I'd become. Someone who knew her worth, who demanded respect, and who'd learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to accept less than you deserve. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Thank you for not giving up on us. I texted back. Thank you for not giving up on me. The trust fund still existed. My parents still lived in their oceanfront condo. Emma was planning her baby's nursery with money that came from my years of service. But now everyone knew where it came from. And more importantly, Everyone knew that my contributions, financial and otherwise, were valued and acknowledged. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the erased sister. I was Sarah Mitchell, veteran, aunt-to-be, and the woman who'd learned that coming home doesn't mean going back to who you were before. Sometimes it means showing everyone who you've become. Epilogue. 2 years later. The baby, Emma named her Sophie, took her first steps at my apartment. I'd been watching her while Emma and Marcus went to a doctor's appointment, and suddenly this tiny person was walking across my living room, arms outstretched, heading straight for me. Did you see that? I called Emma immediately. She walked. She walked right to me. Of course she did, Emma laughed. You're her favorite person. Mom and Dad came to Sophie's first birthday party. It was awkward at first. There was still so much between us that hadn't been fully addressed. But watching Dad teach Sophie to clap while Mom fussed over her outfit, I saw glimpses of the grandparents they could be. She has your eyes. Mom told me quietly while we watched Sophie destroy her birthday cake. She has Emma's eyes, I corrected. No, Mom said firmly. She has Mitchell eyes, strong eyes, determined eyes. She paused. She has your eyes, Sarah. It wasn't the grand apology I'd once hoped for, but it was recognition. It was acknowledgement that I was part of this family, part of this legacy, part of this story that would continue with Sophie. Later that day, after everyone had gone home and Emma was putting Sophie down for a nap, she found me cleaning up wrapping paper in the living room. Sarah, she said, I need to tell you something. I looked up, concerned by her tone. Marcus and I have been talking, and we want you to know, if anything ever happens to us, we want you to have Sophie. We've already put it in our wills. I sat down hard on the couch. Emma, I know it's a big responsibility, and I know you have your own life, but there's no one else we trust more. You fought for this family when no one else would. You showed up when it mattered, and I want Sophie to grow up knowing that strength, that loyalty, that refusal to give up on the people you love. I looked at the pictures scattered around Emma's living room, photos of Sophie, of Emma and Marcus, and now, for the first time in years, photos that included me. Photos of all of us together, a family that had been broken and rebuilt stronger. I would be honored, I said, my voice thick with emotion, but let's plan on you two being around for a very long time. Emma smiled through her tears. Deal. But Sarah, thank you for everything, for not giving up on us when we gave up on you, for showing me what real strength looks like, for teaching me that family isn't just about blood, it's about showing up. You showed up too, Em. When it mattered most, you chose to see the truth. That night, as I drove home through the Florida evening, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. 8 years ago, I'd been a 19-year-old girl desperate to prove herself worthy of love. 4 years ago, I'd been a soldier coming home to find that love had conditions I couldn't meet. 2 years ago, I'd been a woman learning to demand the respect I deserved. Now I was an aunt, a daughter, a sister. Not because I'd earned these titles through sacrifice or money or perfect behavior, but because I'd learned to value myself enough to insist that others value me too. The nonprofit I'd started, Women Veterans Coming Home, now served over 200 women across 3 states. Every month, I met with new groups of female veterans struggling with the same issues I'd faced. Families who didn't understand their service, communities that didn't know how to welcome them home, and the crushing weight of feeling invisible after years of serving their country. The military taught us to be strong, I told them, but it didn't teach us that we deserved to be loved for that strength, not in spite of it. My phone rang as I pulled into my apartment complex. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. Is this Sarah Mitchell? The voice was young, nervous. Yes. Who's this? My name is Jessica Torres. I got your number from the VA. I just got out of the Army last month, and I don't know where to go from here. My family keeps asking when I'm going to get back to normal, and I don't know how to tell them that normal doesn't exist anymore. I parked my car and sat in the darkness, remembering my own desperate phone calls to anyone who might understand. Jessica, I said gently, where are you right now? I'm sitting in my car outside my parents' house. They're having a family dinner, and I was supposed to go in an hour ago, but I can't. I can't pretend to be the person I was before. You don't have to pretend. And you don't have to figure this out alone. Are you free tomorrow morning? I'd like to meet you for coffee. Really? You do that? Jessica, someone once told me that the hardest part of coming home isn't leaving the military. It's finding your place in a world that doesn't understand what you've sacrificed. But here's what I learned. You don't have to fit into their idea of who you should be. You get to decide who you are now. I could hear her crying on the other end of the line. Thank you, she whispered. I'll be there. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a few more minutes, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other women were struggling with the same battles I'd fought. Some of them had families who'd embrace them, others would face rejection and erasure like I had. But all of them deserved to come home to love, not conditions. All of them deserved to be celebrated for their strength, not asked to hide it. And all of them deserved to know that their service mattered, not just to their country, but to the people who claimed to love them. I'd learned that sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the battle, it's refusing to fight on someone else's terms. I'd stopped trying to earn my place in my family's life and started building a life where I belonged. And in doing so, I'd shown them what they'd been missing all along. The trust fund was still there, still supporting the life my family had built. But now it wasn't a secret weapon or a source of shame. It was simply the practical result of years of love expressed through sacrifice. And every month, when I reviewed the expenses, I didn't feel resentment or bitterness. I felt pride. Pride in the woman who'd sent those checks from war zones, believing in the importance of taking care of family. Pride in the woman who demanded respect when she came home, and pride in the woman who turned her own painful homecoming into a mission to help others find their way home too. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Sophie's first word was rah-rah. I think she's trying to say Sarah. I smiled and texted back. Or maybe she's practicing her war cry. Either way, I'll take it. Tomorrow I'd meet Jessica for coffee. I'd listen to her story, share mine, and help her understand that coming home is a process, not an event. I'd introduce her to other women who'd walked this path, and together we'd help her build a life where her strength was celebrated, not hidden. But tonight, I was just Sarah Mitchell, sitting in her car outside her apartment, grateful for a family that had learned to see her worth, proud of the work she was doing, and excited about the future she was building. One conversation, one connection, one act of courage at a time. The girl who'd enlisted at 19 looking for purpose had found it. Not in the places she'd expected, not in the way she'd imagined, but in the simple, radical act of refusing to disappear. I'd come home not to the life I'd left behind, but to the life I'd earned. And that, I realized, was exactly where I belonged. Final reflection. This story began with a homecoming that felt like exile. It ends with a homecoming that feels like victory, not because I defeated my family, but because I refused to let their fear and failure define my worth. To anyone listening who's ever felt erased by the people who should love you most, your value isn't determined by their ability to see it. Your worth isn't diminished by their failure to recognize it. And your story doesn't end with their rejection. It begins with your decision to write a new chapter. Sometimes coming home means going back. Sometimes it means moving forward. And sometimes it means standing exactly where you are and demanding that the world rise to meet you. I am Sarah Mitchell. I served my country for 8 years. I supported my family through their darkest times. I came home to find myself erased, and I used that erasure as fuel to build something better. I am a veteran. I am a sister. I am an aunt. I am a woman who learned that the greatest gift you can give someone is not your sacrifice. It's your expectation that they value it. And I am home.